Welcome to the Responsible Marketing Podcast, conversations about marketing, sustainability, and how we can all help in becoming more responsible organisations. I'm Jo, a marketing strategist and consultant with a career spanning corporate, small medium business and self-employment, incorporating marketing and commercial in various guises, and now flying the flag for a more sustainable and kinder future. In this episode, I'm joined by Allison from Teesdale Cheesemakers, the chief of cheesemaking deep in the heart of County Durham. And we're talking all about how her and Jonathan started their business, their big move, and the challenges of being part of the meat and dairy industry. Let's dive straight in. Hi and welcome to today's podcast. I'm here with Allison from Teesdale Cheesemakers and we're at Pond Farm. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, yeah.
Good, really good. I love coming to Pond Farm, it's so beautiful around here. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of when you set up here and about the business and bits and pieces like that?
Of course,
just as a quick intro.
So we started the business in our utility room in 2016, making 2 cheeses, and it became apparent that that was not going to be very sustainable long term. So as the business started to grow, it became more and more painful to make cheese in the utility room, oddly.
So I did see the old venue and it was tight in there, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then I had to carry the cheese all boxed up from there right the way through the house, across the yard into the cold room. So it was a lot of work. And so we started looking for a premises and moved here in 2019, January 2019. Best time to move because you have the least amount of cheese.
Okay.
Post-Christmas.
Yeah.
So we bought the place in the September, we moved everything in the January. And in between that time, we built a couple of rooms in the house because the house was derelict. Yeah. So a couple of rooms in the house so we didn't have to live in a caravan in winter. But mainly focused, and I'm looking over there because that's where the dairy is, mainly focused on building the dairy. And that was up and running and we made our first batch of cheese beginning of February.
Wow, that's a really quick build then.
Yeah, well it was...
You did a lot of work. You had a lot, I mean I came to site when you first moved over here and it was, well not derelict, but it had a lot of work to do, didn't it?
Most of the buildings were the mortgage said that it was uninhabitable is the survey, which I thought was quite rude because somebody was actually living here at the time. I thought I won't share that with them. Yeah. How did your server go? Fine. Go ahead, fine. But there was a lot. You'll have seen the barn. That was where we thought we were going to put the dairy. But then in the end, we decided to buy some recycled wagon backs, container wagon backs, and put them down. That was the quickest way we could build it.
Okay, right. And now you don't just make cheese here anymore.
No, now we have a cafe and event space. Yeah. That was opened in November 2019 that is, just before COVID.
Yes, but you still managed to do quite good trade in COVID. I loved your little veggie stall that you had out there, and obviously people could come on to park in the car park, so no one had to have any contact, everything. So that was,
and we had a one-way system, and because of the dairy, there was a sink. If you came in the top, you could wash your hands before you came into the shop. We had a one-way system, and then out the bottom. So it all worked out quite well. A lot of hard work. The COVID okey-cokey in out, because the rules were changing constantly. We did a lot of deliveries for people who were in lockdown for a long time because that was tricky. So it was just about being like. That's the good thing about being a small business is you can turn on a pin. You don't have to go to a board of directors or you don't have shareholders. You can just go, let's do this, and you can do it. Yeah. And then 2 years later, I think I've got the timeline right, we opened our glamping lodges. Again, off-grid. I'm saying again, but what I mean by that is we've tried to, throughout the process, be mindful of the environment. And so having off-grid glamping lodges, whilst they have proven to be quite challenging.
Oh, really?
Yes. But I think it's the way the future goes, and what we're looking at there is possibly making them carbon neutral. So, it would be really great if we could say your holiday today is carbon neutral.
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting. I hope we'll come back to that a bit later on, actually. It's a really interesting topic. So we're sat in your beautiful house in Pond Farm, and you've got the the cafes, like you said, that's opened, and the dairy, and then you've also got some small animal holding as well.
We have, yeah. Well, we've got 20 acres here, which is and a couple of acres, including a couple of acres of woodland and a stream. So when we started making cheese, getting rid of the whey is always difficult for a small cheesemaker, because you're not big enough for people like who make whey protein to buy it from you. But you can't put it down the drain. It has to be dealt with as a waste product. Right. So it was always quite tricky for us to do something with that. So when we moved here, we thought, great, we can get a couple of pigs. So originally the idea was just for us, and then we opened the cafe and we thought, oh, sausages and bacon. And since then we tried hand breeding, so we had a breeding sow for a couple of years, 3 years I think, and had a few litters, and now we have her litter. We've got about 6 who have just toddled off to somewhere else. Okay, we're not going into too much detail about that. But everybody says how delicious our bacon and sausages and our burgers, and I genuinely believe that's because they're outside, they're doing rooting, and they're doing what they do. They live a lot longer life than a processed farm factory pig, and we give them all names. I don't suppose that makes any difference to the taste, but but you know, they're part of the family, aren't they? I suppose it's part of exactly. Yeah. Well, I know I've brought my kids up here to see them because it is lovely when they're out and trotting about and things. So. And then we've got Wallace, our goat, who people can go and feed. He's the cool dude of and Jonathan's a little bit jealous of him because whenever anyone comes up and does any filming, he insists that Wallace gets more screen time than he does. Ah, okay. What can you do? Well, male ego. I'm going to say all these alpha males about. I don't know how you manage. And then goats and then the chickens. Yeah. So we've got our own eggs, our own bacon, our sausage, our pork, and of course we make our own cheese. And the rest of the stuff in the cafe or when we cater is largely local, wherever possible. Yeah, and again, you did that in lockdown as well when you had your little veggie store. You tried to coordinate local businesses or home producers or whatever as well, didn't you? Yeah. Because when lockdown happened, we had a fridge maturing cauldron full of cheese. Yeah. We'd just made for Bishop Auckland Food Festival, and of course all our routes to market were closed overnight. Yeah, okay. What occurred to us is that while the supermarket shelves might have been empty, I don't know if you remember that, but that was a really scary apocalyptic moment, wasn't it? You went in there and it was like, there's no food on the shelf. Yeah. There were hundreds of artisan producers, food producers, who had a lot of produce and had the ability to make it. So we just rang up people we'd met in markets and festivals and over the previous years and said, what's your situation? What have you got? What do you need? And we weren't the only people who were doing that. You know, there was lots of effort garnered towards buying local, producing local, and supporting the food network. But it does show you, I thought COVID shows you how vulnerable our food supply chain is. Absolutely. And again, I think we're seeing it probably now as well with different weathers and various things going on in the world that's stopping perhaps food being produced, never mind getting to us anyway. So there's definitely. So do you think, carrying on from that then, do you think that there's been like an upsurge in people wanting to still continue to buy local and support local producers and things? Or do you think people have just fallen back into kind of like, oh, supermarket shelves are full again, I'm just going to nip to the supermarket, it's dead easy? Or you're talking about post-COVID? Yeah, post-COVID, sorry, yeah. Well, I think that certainly some people have fallen back into it, and quite frankly, I can't blame them. We live manic lives. It's the speed that we all feel we have to perform at doesn't allow us sometimes to do the things that we would desire to do, like buy local. Yeah. But I certainly think that there is still those people who are or try to. So it might be that whereas before they didn't even think about it, they'll now think about it, and if they have the time, they'll buy local. Whereas previously, I think everyone just went to the supermarket because it was convenient and it is cheap. People really kind of denigrate the supermarkets, but they have a place. You know, some people can't buy local. Absolutely, they just can't. Yeah. They don't have the economic wealth to do anything other than buy from supermarkets. So they do have a really important role in our society. So we can't really get a bit like, oh, you must always buy local and you should. No, you need to do your bit.
Yeah,
that's
what you can
possible.
do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you guys here are definitely doing what you can do, kind of certainly from perhaps an environment, like you said, from an environmental point of view, sustainability point of view. And I think that's always been through your business, has it?
Yeah.
Since you started? Because I know through yours background and Jonathan's background are very different to obviously what you're doing now. But clearly this must have been something that's run through you both as individuals, I guess, before you started the business up, and then obviously it's followed through in the business. Would that be right?
I think that we come from different angles. Jonathan was brought on a farm where you never threw anything away, you even straightened bent nails.
Oh wow! Okay, that's
his and we have a barn full of not bent nails really, but it
straight
looks like
nails now.
Yeah, but it looks like a whole bunch of rubbish to me. But he builds all sorts of wonderful things out of it. I'm an aging hippie, as probably most people could guess by looking at me. So I have recycled even before there was curbside recycling, when it was a real pain to do it. You know, you had to bunch it into your car and take it somewhere to recycle. I've been doing it since then, and everything from stamps to, because charities at the time were collecting stamps, so I'd take a stamp off every. Do you remember that? You had to. You took a stamp off every letter you got. This is when you got letters with stamps and.
Well, you still do get that. But I can remember my grandpa steaming them off envelopes and things. But I think that was his collection. I don't think that was anything to do with recycling. No. I think it was just his hobby.
No, there was a drive, a charity. I can't even remember now. Just save your stamps and then you'd send them off and they'd be able to use them for. I have no idea what for.
Yeah. Interesting. If anyone knows, let us know.
Yeah. I can't remember.
Yeah,
I just remember doing it. Okay. And I was also a vegetarian for 6 years when my children were very young. They were brought up as vegetarians when through their
early years.
I'm not a vegetarian now. It was just a period of time I was. Then fried chicken and bacon got me.
The smell of the bacon sandwich. And now it's homemade bacon sandwich. It's even worse, isn't it? It's very tantalising.
There's no chance now.
Again, sorry to any
vegetarians or vegans out there.
Vegans.
But I do eat largely plant-based, and that is, some of it is to do with animal welfare, of mainstream rearing of animals, but a lot more of it is to do with the environment and my health.
Yeah, okay. So so there's a lot of strands there in some ways, as in it's not like like you said before, supermarkets have a place, obviously, you know, I guess supermarket meats have a place because people need to eat and depends on home circumstances and income circumstances and all that kind of stuff. But clearly you here are making a stand for what you believe in, so the sustainability side, the environmental side, the animal welfare as well, with the way that you treat your animals that you hold here. So do you think, how do you portray that through your marketing for the business? Are you very strong on that level, or do you find it quite hard, or I don't know, do you find it hard to convey that, or do you find some people are put off by it maybe if you do use it? Talk me through a little bit of that.
I don't think we make enough of it, to be honest, Jo. I think part of it is because when it wasn't so in vogue and there wasn't so many experts around, you could talk about the environment without worrying too much about are you getting it right. So I don't think we make a lot. We could certainly make more of it. So for example, one of the things that we do, which no one knows, or very few people know, is we only take one cut of grass off our land. Now you'll notice when you're driving up, everyone else has cut their grass, we haven't, because we have nesting curlews.
Oh wow!
And they sound
that's
fabulous.
Amazing.
I know.
I love a curlew.
Yes.
Now I wish I had worn my curlew socks. I have a pair. I'll have to send you a photo. They're amazing. Yeah. They're made by Shuttle Socks, by the way, in case anyone's watching. And follow Shuttle Socks; they're amazing.
Oh, they are good. Actually.
Yeah. Have you seen them?
I agree.
Oh.
So, we knew we had 2 nesting pairs last year. We think we have 3 this year.
Incredible.
So that's really exciting. So as a consequence, we lose money on that because we used to take 2 cuts. The first year we moved here, we moved 2 cuts, and when we realised, we thought, we need to change that, and we did some research. So it's all about you learn a little bit as you're going along.
Yeah.
So I think we are a little bit nervous about blowing our environmental sustainable trumpet because we're not entirely sure how good we are on the scale. We've done some measures and stuff, but we don't know how that compares to anybody else. And because we're in dairy and meat, it's never going to be great because those industries aren't great for the environment necessarily. So we're trying to mitigate that. We've also planted over, I think something like 60 trees now in the 5 years we've been here.
In the lands, the 20 acres that you've got.
Yeah. And the other thing we've done is a small thing, but we've covered all the external night lights in yellow film because that protects the nocturnal nightlife. It stops disturbing them. The white lights disturb them. And as a consequence, we did that about 2 years ago, I think. We now have we have owls because we hear them at night, whereas we didn't before. So you know, I think there's just these little things we do. And the other thing that we do with the pigs, when they're out in the summer, they rut and make big holes in the ground, and we leave them and we let them fill with water. So that creates algae. And we haven't had any newts or frogs yet, but it is a good place. It's a good idea to leave them so that they can come if they, there's a habitat there. Absolutely. So we're kind of thinking, how do we...
You're almost regenerating it then, are you? Because I'm guessing this kind of land must have had that type of thing on before.
Well, it was farming, mining.
Okay.
It was open cast mines, so no, the soil isn't great.
Okay.
So I doubt it, but so the other things that we're doing is we're planting a lot of wildflowers. A lot of clover. We've got a lot of clover and I now have bees on, so they're pollinating, and that's improving the wildflowers that we've got here that have naturally grown. But also we've started noticing like forget-me-nots and poppies. There's more of those appearing. So those are things, just gradual changes that we just made some tweaks and things. And we do other small things, like when I make cheese, I when we're cooling down, I collect a big tub of boiling hot water out of the tank that would normally go down the sink, and that's used for washing down, and for the initial washing down, obviously not the final one. It has to be running water. So it's just lots of little things that, and the lodges, they're solar powered. So that means that our glampers can't use toasters or hair tongs because it'll drain the battery. But it does mean that there's less of an impact. So the next exciting step there is I'm starting to log what it costs us to have the wood-fired hot tub.
Okay.
How much do we use? How much diesel do we use for the heater? How much gas do we use for the gas hob and the fridge? And then how do we mitigate that and make that carbon neutral? How many trees do we have to plant in a year in order to offset that, or how many acres of wildflowers or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a whole bunch of things that we're looking to do, and there's more to do on that.
Yeah, and I think for any business that's looking to be a bit more responsible, it's like you said, it's small things, isn't it? Because as a business, I don't even know any businesses, doesn't matter what size they are, that can suddenly make a massive turn and have the investment required and the disruption, everything else, to put really big changes in place and then see the benefits happen. It has to be small. And also, like you say, it's really important to go small steps, because then you can see what impact you're having, so at least you can keep measuring it.
Yeah, and also, is it the right thing to do?
Yeah,
because we had this desire to plant loads of trees and expand the wood. But we haven't, because we don't know enough about it, Joe. So we might be putting trees in there that are actually going to have a negative impact on what's already there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've linked with Durham Wildlife Trust, and they've been out a couple of times to have a look at the area, and we're looking for some advice from them. Yeah. So it's really, I don't think it's a great idea to just suddenly pile in and do something different. We're doing the environmental stuff and the sustainability stuff the way we do everything in our business. Small slices, test it out, check it out. Is this the right direction to go in? Yeah, so do you have, I know you said you've got some measures in place, do you have that documented and quite formal already then? Yeah. Because obviously a lot of businesses, certainly the big corporates, have to report and things like that, but the smaller, medium-sized businesses aren't required to as yet, but we know it's going to come at some point, probably back into next year, early 2026, I would imagine. But equally, you're in a position, which I think is amazing, by the way, where you're not waiting for the stick to come beat you on the head to say, right, you need to do this, or tell us this information and this is what you need to do.
you're actually already starting that. So actually when they come and ask for the information, you can say, well, actually from 2020, even though it was COVID, this is what we started doing because we put all these things in place. And I think that's probably the best way to do it. Also, like you say, it just means it's more sustainable for you as a business, but also it's got longevity, I think, then, because you're already making a roadmap towards that,
absolutely.
aren't you?
I mean, it just makes good business sense as well, because, you know, if you can cut your costs, that's perfect. It's a win-win, isn't it? And also there's the feel-good factor. And I think we do need to make more of it. It's just that we're a little bit nervous about doing that, because if someone comes and checks our credentials, you know, which is where someone like yourself comes in, I think that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And that's what I would say, is doing exactly as you have done and finding that benchmark from where you've started from, and then actually gathering the information. So like you say, the industry you're in is quite difficult because of the legacy that it has. But also the impact you're having by the rewilding and all that kind of stuff. If you can get somebody, and there are people who do this, who can come and tell you how many acres of this type of wild flowering will give you so much back or whatever. And also what you're doing in the community as well. So maybe there's some other stuff you can do locally. So there's all sorts of different aspects. I think it's just looking at what you're doing really well now, which is there's loads of stuff you can talk about, I think, without that fear factor. But I do understand that because, you know, it seems to be the smaller companies that get pulled up for greenwashing and green hushing and blue rinsing and all that kind of stuff quicker than the corporates, because the corporates have got big legal teams, everything else. So I can absolutely understand the fear factor of that, but I think it's so important that people understand that there's a progress route here. It's not like saying, right, we're carbon neutral, that's it, we're done.
Yeah.
That's probably an impossibility to ever say anyway, actually, because it's always still going to be, it's not, you know, this is the end of our journey, we're done here, because it's always going to carry on, you know, and you're always going to, like we were talking earlier about evolving the business and this, that and the other. It's always going to evolve alongside the business and depending on what you do with the business.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think there are definitely areas that are probably easy to pull out, even if it's governance, so how you run the business. Where perhaps, you know, you as a business, you and Jonathan are much more confident in how you portray that, because it's, you know, set in stone, you've got these policies and you're ready to go on that. And maybe that's the start of that kind of conversation. And then the actual kind of like emissions offsetting, which is much more complicated, but can be done, you know, that is.
And that's your area, isn't it? Isn't
I can do carbon emissions benchmarking as a top line. You know, I don't do full audits. I know some people who will do that, but that's not my speciality. But my speciality really is identifying the opportunities that you're doing now that you can then communicate internally, you know, to the Teesdale Cheesemakers team, but also externally with confidence and without having that fear of maybe someone saying, well, hang on a minute, I saw you, I don't know, put whey down the drain, which I know you don't. That's a complete lie, by the way. No, never happened. But, you know, somebody would pull something up saying, well, actually, I've read this, and actually, I think you're doing this. Well, okay, so here's our proof. This is our transparency.
Yeah.
And as I say to any business, on anything really, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's strategy, whether it's sustainability, whatever it is, as long as you're saying we are working towards, then how can someone pull you up on it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
Cracking strapline. We're working towards.
We're working towards. I hope that's not on anything political. Anyway, let's ignore that. Okay, so do you think it's important for businesses, not just in the Northeast, but generally, just to put sustainability and being a more responsible business further up the agenda, and recognise the impact that can have for them?
Oh, well, there'll be some that don't do anything and don't care to. And there'll be others like ourselves who are really keen to do as much as they possibly can within their resources and their capability and their knowledge and expertise. And then a whole raft of in-betweenies. So it's really difficult to say what other businesses should and shouldn't do. I think we feel because Jonathan is keen to save costs, I'm keen to save the planet. So between us, it works for us as an agenda, and it always has done. It always has. And I really think it can be, and I think this is the problem sometimes with new trends, and this is beyond a trend now, I appreciate, but when things become talked about a lot, we then start getting a big stick and start beating other people or start pointing fingers. And I honestly don't feel that's the best way to approach any important discussion, because there may be very good reasons why an organisation isn't doing something, and that, or they just are too afraid to even start.
Yeah.
You know,
I get
or they may be doing things and we just don't even know it.
I think that's probably most likely. I think a lot of businesses are doing things without even realising, and again, it goes back to the fear factor of saying,
or not blowing the trumpet
or
it,
or they don't feel they need to, which is fine, which is great. But again, from a marketing point of view, which of course I'm always going to come from, you know, there's all that kind of opportunities for communication, for finding new target audiences or markets, for just expressing the credentials of businesses, because you know the consumer is much more savvy now, whether you're business to business or business to consumer direct. They're much more savvy about how they buy, and they want to know what's behind the business. So the personalities behind the business, the values behind the business, the story of why you started, the purpose, all that kind of.
I completely agree.
People get much more kind of savvy with that and want to know. So I think for me, those businesses that will put their kind of like foot forward, if you like, and start using that information will probably gain that competitive advantage.
Absolutely, well. I completely agree, and I think that. It's not a case of what other business should do. It's almost like if you don't, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
We're looking at moving our focus to the glamping lodges to try and like give a carbon neutral holiday, because I believe that's the future.
Yeah.
That is, you know, people are going to, not everyone, most people who come at the moment don't give two hoots really. They'd probably rather have a toaster. Truth be told. But we do have more and more, as word gets out, more and more people who come because there are rare birds here, there are rare flowers here. They go for walks in a wood that has not been, that it's managed, but it's not been cultivated, or you know, they're actually forested or whatever word you use. And this is one of the reasons why talking about environment and sustainability, sometimes you don't have the language and you feel a little shy about it.
True. Yeah.
But I think we are noticing this year we've had at least half a dozen couples who've come because they've heard about the environment and what's here for them to enjoy, and they like the idea of being off grid.
Yeah,
that's a small percentage now, but I only see that getting bigger. And the more businesses that can embrace that sort of thing, I think the more they're going to be, like you say, at the forefront of people's choice. Yeah, definitely. And those businesses that manage to do that and capture that, I think, will be the ones that last longer as well. You know, so they become not only responsible businesses but more sustainable businesses in themselves and leave a legacy behind, don't they? For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, so obviously you've got so far with the dairy and everything else. What's next for you? Do you think, either from a sustainability point of view or a business point of view, or? Well, from a sustainability point of view, I've already mentioned we're going to move our focus to the glamping lodges and see if we can get them carbon neutral. What does it take? And that's a big piece of work. So we need some headspace to do that. And we've made a quite recent, quite difficult decision to close the cafe at the end of summer. Okay. That will give us some headspace to do some of the things, some of the other big projects that we want to do. Yeah. Okay. We've already got a number of private events for that space, and we have got some weekend packages that we want to put together for foodies or for people who enjoy the nature and want to know more about what's here. Yeah. And also some mind, body, spirit stuff, because it just lends itself perfectly to stunning here. To just switch off. And we've never allowed Wi-Fi or TVs or radios in the glamping lodges, and there's been a couple of people who've shared with us, like, when I first arrived, I thought, oh my God, how am I going to, and then they said within a couple of hours they just completely switch off, and it's like they've taken a complete break from modern life. So we'd like to capitalise a bit more on that as well. Yeah. And then with the cafe, maybe a summer thing that we reopen again next summer. But we kind of need some headspace to finish some projects that we have ongoing that just aren't getting across the finish line, that are really personally important to us. Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously I'll be sad to see the cafe go because it is lush. But, you know, if you've got it for events and things like that, then I guess it kind of
it'll pay for itself, and you don't have the overheads of opening the 5 or 6 days a week that you are open, and even that in itself as a business responsibility is quite tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're off the beaten path a little bit, although you've got some very loyal customers.
Yeah.
But you know, I suspect, I don't know, you tell me, the cafe's probably not bursting every single day, and that's when it becomes a difficult business decision what to do, doesn't it?
So and absolutely, and then when you look at autumn, winter, and spring, certainly early spring, you know, February, March, we don't get much footfall. There's a lot of overheads. We have to switch on all the machines and switch on all the fridges, it's just not viable, and we've got staff to cover and all the rest of it. But we're trying to think of how we can use that space. So we may well still do our pizza nights and our tapas nights.
Perfect.
We have christening booked in, which is
amazing.
really exciting.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just
fabulous.
a lovely thing. We've got some tourist tours that we're going to still do the dairy tours and the tastings and the cheese experiences. So there's still a lot we're going to hold on to that's special. It's just really about rationalising your business and thinking, what else could we do? A little bit like it's another little COVID moment, really. It's you know, and there are other businesses. When we first opened the cafe here, there weren't a lot of cafes around here.
Yeah, okay.
And since there's been a cafe that's opened with lots of animals, and that's pulled a little on our appeal, because they've gone big on animals. You know, they've got a whole petting thing and everything.
And everything.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
And that's never where we were going to go.
Yeah,
We've got animals that are part of our daily life, and that's it, and part of our offer. And then there's another big place that's open that looks stunning, and the quality is there, and that's not very far away, and some of our glampers have started going there, and that's an indication that perhaps it's time for us to before we crash and burn. As entrepreneurs, it's our job to horizon scan and say what is going to impact on us, and that could be politically, it could be environmentally, and it could be competition, and say what are we going to do about it, and it may be that at that point you reinvent yourself.
I love that. I love, look at all the horizons, seeing what's happening next. It's absolutely true, isn't it? And you know, we were talking before about things evolving, and a business, same as any part of it within a business as well, it has to evolve to keep going and to respond to new things that happen all the time, doesn't it? So, and be a bit more agile. And I think you're right when you said at the very beginning when we started talking about, you know, being a smaller business does make you more agile and more responsive to what needs to happen. So yeah, it's been really interesting. So thanks, Alison. It's been really interesting talking to you. Is there anything else you want to say to the camera, to our viewers, or any other news you want to talk about?
Well, just one. I've just started a new business.
Oh, wow. Gosh, in amongst everything else.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm working with individuals who... it's kind of a business and life coach, because sometimes they are both the same thing.
Absolutely.
So I'm working with a lot of women in business who want to either get a better work-life balance, or they feel blocked in their business, or blocked somewhere in their personal life. So that's great, because it means that I can use the tools I have for personal development alongside my business experience. So that's helpful.
And you've got a lot of background experience in that as well, haven't you, from previous working and things like that?
I used to have a therapy business way back when my kids were small. So it's quite nice to drag that out of the closet, blow the cobwebs off, and pull that together with the business experience I've gained over the last 15, 20 years.
Amazing.
And some good results coming from it, so that's good.
Great, that's amazing. So how, if people are interested, how do they get hold of you for that side of the business?
Just drop me an email, and I'll give you a free 15-minute consultation, just to see if we can work together. Because that's really important. You have to have a vibe. You have to be able to get on with that person. There's a level of trust that's required, and if that doesn't click in the first 15 minutes, you know they're better off going and finding someone else to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I have the same with my business. You know, I would always check out a business and get them to check me out as well, because like you say, it's a partnership. You know, whether it's personal, whether it's business, whatever, it's a partnerip there, isn't it? And you need to make sure it both works both ways, doesn't it? So,
I think sometimes you forget in business that it's people are in the business, and that's so important. We focus on strategy and figures and facts, but it's ultimately about people.
Yeah, it is, totally. So what's the email address that people should use?
Oh, just the Teesdale Cheesemakers one for the
still
moment.
through that now.
Yeah, for now. And then I can always guide them to my other email. It's just easier if I use that as an initial contact.
So find the Teesdale Cheesemakers email, which is
Allison with 2 L's at teesdalecheesemakers.co.uk.
Excellent, thank you.
Thanks, Jo.
Thanks ever so much. See you again next time.
Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to the Responsible Marketing Podcast. You can contact me by email at jo@jolongconsulting.com or find me on LinkedIn. All recordings of the podcast can be found on YouTube, as well as where you usually get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed listening, please hit subscribe, which helps the podcast be found by more people. And of course, feel free to share it on your socials. Until next time, thanks for listening.